What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Evening Alpha. I am your host, Todd Wanish, 20-something-year veteran of the comic and animation and Web3 industries, NFTs. I've done it all, which is good. It's nice. It's nice when you can not focus on one thing and just kind of do everything and, just never find your path. Anyway, tonight I've got a very special guest, someone who I have actually talked to before, a friend of mine. We are going to talk to Designated Token Human from Hail Draconis. What is up, man? How are you?
I'm good, Todd. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, man. So Designated Token Human is here representing Hail Draconis. I'm dying to I already know a lot, but I'm dying to learn more, all the secrets. I'm glad that your overlords could send you, man.
I'm glad they let me out. They can be pretty harsh, but whenever there's an opportunity to push the reptilian agenda, they like to let me out for an hour or two. So it's great. It's great for me to stretch my legs, get some fresh air.
That's true. It looks way better than the dungeon I know you're usually
in.
So.
The Reptilians are pretty dank and kind of moist. Not so pleasant.
So tell me about Hail Draconis.
So where to begin? Well, anyone that's come across Hail Draconis probably aware that it's all about the Grand Reptilian Council. So that's Lord Corplor, who's our supreme overlord. We've got Dildor, who's the sort of sleazy, kind of gross, kind of deadly assassin. He's a freak, basically. We've got Crucifor, who's the master of prophecy. I'm actually Crucifor's PA, so I do a lot of his errands and basically do his bookings and all that sort of stuff. And then we've got Cryptor, who's like the sniveling little runt of the team. Who gets picked on quite a bit, and rightfully so. So the Grand Reptilian Council kind of made their presence known on the blockchain in late 2020 when they generously released their Reptilian coin token, which grants holders exemption from becoming a blood sacrifice, basically. So they're all don't get me wrong, the reptilians love a blood sacrifice, but they kind of realized too that they're going to need some humans, such as myself, such as you, Todd, to basically do their bidding while they're trying to take over the world. So you hold the reptilian coin, your local reptilian overlord comes for a probing or a sacrifice, you just flash the coin and you're safe. So they did that. They jumped on like socials and Telegram and got to know people. And then NFTs were kicking off at around the same time. And that very, very clever and intelligent reptilian overlord, Corplor, decreed that we should be pushing into that direction. And so we experimented with a few holder reward NFTs, which is our Genesis set, which is the Unholy Reptilian Tarot.
Were those the comics, or was this before the comics?
No, before then. So this is they're basically, it's a tarot representation of each of the Grand Reptilian Council. There was only 13 of each one made, and they were rewards for holders. And then there was a bit more experimentation going on. At the same time, they sort of lent on me being the designated token human who has a bit of a background in film production and commercial world to reach out to some production companies. And we hooked up with a company called Truce Films and decided to develop an animation project based around the Reptilian Council. So that sort of was put into motion. And at the same time, we decided to try our hand at comic books. And that was actually an idea put forward to us by Lord Zeeg from Ethmen. Because they'd just been doing comics, and we'd teed up I don't know if you've seen our little Hail Draconis Ethmen figures.
That was one of the first things I saw. And I was blown away because they were so good.
They do such a great job. They were really cool, those figures. So we did that little set, and then Zeeg said, you guys want to do a comic with us? And so the council were like, yeah, let's do it. And then here we are, up to issue 3, teaming up with your good self.
I love the fact, man, that like one of the things that attracted me early on was when I started looking at the NFT space. Like every single roadmap I saw had a comic as like part of its delivery, right? It was like, I mean, they had the other stuff too, where I was like the Netflix show, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like good luck with that. But I was really intrigued by every single project, or at least 90% of them seemed to really have like comic. And so I initially saw that as like the new comics revolution, right? Because mainstream comics, at least here in the States, have been kind of on the decline. Stores aren't carrying as many. The comic shops that are actually on the incline are the back issue stores, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that for another time. But I was really intrigued by it. And what I've noticed though, as time goes on and as these projects go forward, a lot of the projects, and this is not a negative, I'm not trying to call anybody out, but the comic was a roadmap milestone item only. Meaning, here's the comic, okay, next thing. And I was like, wait a minute, like
utility,
I want those comics. So one of the things that I love about Hail Draconis is the fact that you guys actually produce books, and you're not stopping. Like issue 3 is nothing to sneeze at. Like it's a tremendous amount of work to put a comic book together.
It is, and that's why there's such a gap between issues for us. But it's exactly right. It's like we did the first comic. I think I'll just jump back a little bit. I think our project's kind of different than a lot of projects because we didn't launch with a profile pic, generative mint, and then filling out the world around that. We're kind of doing it backwards. We are building the world from the ground up and then bringing those elements into it. So it was like we did a comic because we wanted to do a comic, not because we'd said to people, oh, we need to, this is all the cool stuff we got coming up. We're like, yeah, a comic will be fun. Let's do that. The characters are crazy. A comic book, you can do anything. We're in Web3. Projects love collaborating, which is amazing. And so we view the comic as a way to cross over with all these different projects. And that's why we did it. So yeah, it's a fun space for that regard. Yeah,
I think the only thing that I would challenge you on lightly is that I actually think we did it the right way. I think going first with a profile pic, while in the NFT space, it makes a lot of sense because that's sort of like quote unquote what works and especially what caught fire in last year, right? 2021. But if you look at, and you know this because we come from a similar background with like film and television and stuff, like brand building to create an actual brand or an IP, the story has to come first. And what's great about releasing, actually not just releasing a comic, but saying, hey, here's the next one. Hey, here's the next one. Hey, here are the partnerships for the you're actually doing like variant covers and actually putting a series out, is that you're developing the characters in real time, and already they have more life and more substance behind them than I would say like 99% of the projects. And that's not to blow smoke. It's just that you have people can come into your world and they can say, what the hell is this about? And you can say, go check that out. And they can read it and they're like, oh, I know that character. I know this character. And then they start to get in, they can start to get into the universe. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the appeal for us too. It's like you said, there's a lot of projects, and again, not to disparage anyone for doing this, but things are listed as checkpoints on the roadmap without any growth prior to that, if that makes sense. So it's exactly what you said. Like, we've got to the point of having issue 3 of the comic, and the animation, while it's being slow to produce, we did get the teaser episode done, and that's led to adding a showrunner who's going to develop it properly, and that's because the characters were alive before then. Exactly right. Like the council, when they started, they all had their social media accounts. They were reptilians online 24/7, and that's where a lot of the backstory comes from, just from being those people and discovering it as they go.
So this is more of a personal question. How do you deal? Well, let me give context. So the Web3 NFT space moves like ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so fast, dude. Like, you know, it really is true. Like a week in the NFT space or a month in the NFT space is like a year anywhere. Like, forget it. And it is cool. However, it also fosters this like immediate, like, what have you done for me lately? Like, where's my thing? Where's my thing? When this, when that? And a lot of that comes from a positive place, from passion for the project. They might love the thing so much that they just want the thing, right? And a lot of it comes from naivete, where a lot of people, my contention is that a lot of people that are in the Web3 space or in NFTs, like, this is the first thing they've ever collected, right?
Yeah.
Comics didn't catch them, baseball cards didn't catch them, you know, I don't know, other games didn't catch them, RPGs didn't catch them, but NFTs caught them, right? And so there's a lot of like not understanding how things get made, because it's just not, they don't need to know this, right? They've never had to. And so, especially for someone who's doing animation, right? We both know how long animation takes. Animation is like the world's slowest thing ever. Like, it's so long. It takes a lot of work and a lot of people and a lot of time. So how do you deal with like that expectation? Because I guess the other part of this for people to know is, like, you guys have been out a while. Hail Draconis was one of the first projects I saw when I hopped into the space. Like, we were already building, but we hadn't launched any website or anything. But we were already talking, because I was like, oh my God, dude, your project is awesome. I love the animation. Like, so how do you deal with that? The fact that you have to take your time, and especially in the storytelling space with Web3.
Yeah, I think that's where having those periphery outlets come into play. So like, yeah, being very active on Twitter, you know, with sometimes manage Christopher's account for him, being his assistant. So
it's very sweet. It's very nice.
Yeah, well, I have to, or else it's a severe probing, which is not pleasant. So, you know, being there, trying to grow the brand and the characters that way. And that's through getting to know great artists and commissioning work. And I think we've got the animation, which ideally that's our tentpole calling card for the project, but it absolutely is very involved and it takes a hell of a long time. So we've I think we've been going at it so long that we've moved past that immediate demand for content.
Yeah.
So we have absolutely dealt with that. When's the animation? When's the full episode? When's the pilot? While that's happening, we've kind of just, you know, weathered that storm. That's happening in the background. That's doing its own thing. And it's a little bit out of our control in terms of, we can't make it happen any faster. Yeah. We can't get people to pour money into it. There's a plan in place, and that's sort of on that path now. But what we can do is team up with cool projects like yourself, produce comic books, generative projects, which is our next thing. There's a lot of stuff that we can keep doing. Keep doing. It's very early here. And we had a bit of an adrenochrome render last night down the Reptorium, so I'm a little bit shaky. But yeah, no, there's a lot of other content that can be made, and our presence can be out there for the world to see, that people know we're still active and we're still doing stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's not like we're, you know, disappearing into the night.
Yeah, I think there's something really important there too, which is, you're also like, I don't know about your first launch, but our first launch, you know, I think like every project, we were just terrified. Like, we had worked so hard and we hadn't slept, and leading up to the launch, I think we hadn't slept. I mean, I know I hadn't slept in at least 2.5 weeks. I mean, no more than 2 hours a night. It was just ground myself into dust to get that launch out, right? and when it launches, there's all the immediate stuff you have to deal with. There's always people that don't understand the project. Maybe people come in and, this doesn't always happen, but maybe people come in and they're just trying to flood the project. Or it takes all kinds, right? There's all kinds of people. It's the internet, wear a cup, right? Like people come in and whatever. And there was a tremendous amount of fear because it felt like the project, because we were just launching, it was so fragile, right? But then after being around a while and continually delivering and continually hitting milestones and continually like saying we're going to do something and doing it, it's definitely gotten way easier, way more confident, right? Like we never were not confident before, but we knew that the market wasn't confident, and now we're so confident that we're just like doing the thing, right? And I think there's something to that, not only just in launching to create residual pieces on the side that help to build the world out and help to build a story, but you're also getting that muscle of like here's the milestone, here's the goal, let's get the comic, let's do the process, let's get it out. When's the deadline? Cool, let's launch it, right? And so how many launches total have you guys done with the comics and everything else now?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest. So we had, like, just as a bit of a side anecdote, our most disastrous launch was the token launch back in 2020, because at its core, a Reptilian coin was, a Uniswap gem shitcoin. We know the value of it because it's protecting people from blood sacrifice, but that was like the heyday of just people looking for stuff to pump. And
that's early too, man. That's early.
Yeah. And like, personally, me coming into it, I'd never had any exposure to crypto or anything like that. And so all of a sudden, I'm on this Telegram with just all of these degens coming in, pumping us up. Like I had such a massive ego before we launched, because like, they really love this. This is great. They really get what we're doing. It's just, this is fun. And then we launched, like we had the actual launch in a week. It was during a weekday, and we were all, all of us personal assistants to the council have full-time jobs. So we were just like, oh yeah, be fine. Like, launch it, great. Unbeknownst to us, it's like the launch is the big event for these tokens. Yeah. Like, that's when it can pump and dump and they can make their money off it. So we're just like launched it, and then we just got this endless stream of FUD and like just people at us, and it was like we're just all there powerless, going, what the hell's happening? and then it's like, and then the wave crashes, and then it's like, oh god, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And that's sort of like that whole, it was like a trial by fire or initiation by fire. And then after that, that's when we were just sort of good to get that out of the way. And then we're like, well, we're still doing this because this is what we enjoy, and build it up from there. That was the most disastrous launch.
But it's a good story, because like now, I mean, the fact that you don't remember how many launches, I mean, it's got to be at least like 6 or 7 across multiple things. Like do you find that there's like a sense of calm now with launches, where you're just like, I mean, there's always a stress. You're never not going to have the stress of a launch, because you want it to do well and you work really hard, and that's a release of tension from a lot of work. But in terms of like just getting it out there, do you feel more relaxed about like, okay, we'll get it out and just get to the next thing?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first issue of the comic was probably the most stressful or nervous I think we've been before something, because that was our big, like, this is something that we've put a lot of care into and thought behind, and just have no idea how it's going to be received. So that was probably the most stressful time. But as you said, from then on, it's just, that the project's going to continue regardless of what happens. It's not like we're a fresh project going, we've been working on this generative profile pic thing. Here's the mint, and then if it doesn't kick off, if people don't mint it, it's not like that's the end of it.
Right.
It's like we've done all this stuff, and we're still building, and we still know what we want to do. So now when we release a comic or a special edition artist collab or whatever, It's cool if people respond to it. It's great. That's what we
Yeah.
want. But it's not the be all and end all.
Right. Yeah, I think you and I have the same attitude with it. It's like everybody under the sun wants to mint out their project. Like everybody. Like there's no one anyone that says, oh, I don't care if it mints out, like is not telling you the truth. Like everybody, anyone who's legit is going to work their face off to try to get the any kind of project off the ground and into a good position. With that said, like my contention is that it's a little nuts to think that if a project doesn't mint out or a launch doesn't mint out or whatever, that's some kind of negative thing. Because and I understand it. I understand where the mentality comes from. I mean, I'm in the space just as you are. We both get it. However, there isn't really another, like, you don't go to like a grand opening of a grocery store and like come in like an hour later and the grocer is like, sorry, we sold out of everything. You know, we're closing, you know, we're actually building another grocery store down the street because we sold out of all of everything. Like it doesn't happen in the real world, quote unquote real world. Like there is no expectation for any small business to launch on launch day to sell 10,000 products, right? And just completely sell out of everything, or else it's a complete trash fire. Like that's nuts to me.
It is nuts. And it's like, I think it's just that the fact that is a thing highlights that, like, I find this a little bit hard to put into words, but there's clearly different types of projects in Web3 NFTs. And there are projects that are purely about the mint. Mm-hmm. Like they don't care what happens after the mint. And it's like going back to the shitcoin 2020 sort of thing. It's like, this is something that people are going to jump on and pump, and then they don't care what happens to it afterwards. And I think that with our projects, that's a different, and there's a lot of other projects that are like us doing it better than us. Not you, Todd, but talking personally here. But you know what I mean? Like they're not just about the mint. And you're exactly right. If it doesn't mint out straight away, that doesn't matter, because they still have a clear vision on what they're doing and what they're building. And I think that's the important thing, is to look for those projects, I think.
Yeah.
And not be deterred. Oh, they didn't mint out straight away, it's a failure. It's like, if you can see that there's a story and there's passion behind the project, then it's worth looking into.
Yeah, 100%. And I've also noticed that, especially with like the Web3 storytelling projects, like for the most part, they are, it's just a different path, right? Like you're not going to have, I think it's going to be very interesting. Time is going to tell, because I believe that the biggest projects are going to be in the storytelling, come from the storytelling space. Those are the ones that are going to really have an impact on culture. So certainly you're going to have projects like Bored Ape and other things that came from the other side as well. It's not like a zero-sum game. However, I think the biggest misses are actually going to be from people not seeing the opportunity early on with the storytelling projects. You've got people making films and animation and comics and all kinds of stuff. People who have a background in filmmaking and television and brand building and knowing how to launch IP. And the market at large right now doesn't see it, because they're kind of set on short-sighted goals. Yeah. And in fact, if you really look at stuff, like a lot of the stuff that's going on in the industry right now, like a lot of the staking mechanics, and again, I'm not to mess with anybody specifically, just in general, a lot of those game mechanics are tactics for pumps, right? So they're very, very good for flippers who can come in and push the price up. So the team gets paid really well. But there's zeros there. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. Once the value goes down or the payout starts to go down, everybody bolts and jumps ship and goes to the next thing. And there's no project left, right? And Axie Infinity is going, and that's Axie Infinity is going through that right now, and that's freaking Axie Infinity.
Yeah.
Right? They changed to a more sustainable model, and that lowered the payout, and everyone bounced, and they're like 90% down or something.
Crazy.
Right?
But it's exactly right, though. It's like all of the clones of like Wolf Game when that came out.
Yeah.
And then it was quite an endless stream of similar projects with staking and stealing and all that sort of stuff, and it's not sustainable. I think you're exactly right. The projects that are focused on story, they're generally the ones that have been around the longest too, or like that have got the longevity sort of built into it, because it's not relying on those gimmicky kind of mechanics.
Right. You're following something that you're basically following the path of the entirety of 20th century pop culture. Like,
Yeah.
there is a template there. It's like invent
Yeah.
something, build the story, build the audience, start licensing it, and grow the community. Like, that's how every major property in the 20th century, that's how it all happened. You know, whether it was fast or slow, I mean, that's pretty much how it works. Really quick, I'm gonna jump into chat. We're gonna say hello to people tonight. Willie D, what's up, man? LFG, Hail Draconis. Welcome, Willie. Hey, Nikki Gandhi, how are you? LFG, let's go. Let's go. Studio 7.62. That's Avery. Avery's the illustrator of our adult fantasy origin comic.
Nice.
Featuring Devoid. What's up, Avery? How you doing? Hail. Rages, hello. Avery says, let's go.
We're going.
Avery says, what's up, friends? Let's go. Let's see. So WV Mule says, looking forward to listening in. I hope you're having a good time. Jera, what's up? He's saying, what's up, family? Carrots is here. Hail Draconian, what's up? Carrots is awesome. Natasha, how are you? Welcome. Hey, so cool to hear about the history. Excellent. Good question. We got a question from Willie D. Could you speak to the future RPTC utility, aside from avoiding blood sacrifice?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll preface this, and you might hear there's some crazy action going on in the Reptilian back there, but tell me if it's getting too much and I'll jump up and close the door.
You might go ahead, jump up and close the door. You're good.
Yeah, cool. All right, give me
really quick. We're good. In the meantime, we'll just say Studio 7.62 says Devoid is my girl. Yeah, man, she's awesome. I can't wait. That origin comic is going to be coming soon, everybody. That thing looks great. It's going to be so good.
All right.
Yeah,
so RPTC. So this kind of loops back to what we were just talking about, where I'm certainly not immune to wanting to follow trends. And it's hard in the Web3 space to, I think we're getting a bit better at it now, but absolutely every time something new popped off, you want a piece of that success. So, you know, there was definitely times where we're going, we have to get RPTC staking happening. What are the rewards going to be? You know, what can people do about it? We've got to gamify it. We've got to blah, blah, blah. Now, I think, thankfully, like, we probably move a bit too slow to be chasing trends, and we'll just let that pass. My passion has been getting to know artists and collecting art, and that's the side of NFTs that I love. And so through the last year or two, got to know, we've had some really cool Hail Draconis collabs. And I think that that's the direction that we're going to take RPTC. So we're looking at, once we get this generative project launched, we're going to focus on a marketplace, which will have, basically that'll act as our primary marketplace, and that'll be where people can use RPTC. And then that'll be tied into the profile pic project somehow. I'm still developing how that will work. But in the meantime, I'm going to focus on exclusive artist collections that are available on the marketplace for RPTC. So we've got a piece already by Glower. I actually have never said his name out loud before. Glower is a really, really talented video artist, like a 3D artist. I might pop that on Crucifor's Twitter a bit later again. But so the idea is exclusive pieces that people who hold RPTC can exchange their token and get these cool bits of art. So that's the utility that we have in the sort of immediate future.
I like that. That's awesome, man. And I will say too, like you have a really good eye for collaboration. Like the people that you get for your covers and some of the artwork that you've shown, like both the interiors and covers, There's really good stuff, man.
There's a lot of talent out there.
It really is.
Really talented people making stuff. And again, like that's just that spirit of collaboration that's kind of still in the space is really, it's refreshing, but it means you get to work with really amazing, talented artists.
Yeah, and I think you're also like opening the door for other people to see what's possible, right? Because there are some people come from so many different backgrounds into the space, you know, like I can look at that and I'm like, oh man, you've got awesome variant covers, and you're like, oh cool, like you have a whole bunch of people that don't even know what a variant cover is. They don't, you know what I mean? Like you're actually using the comic as a platform to expose more artists out into the Web3, which is very cool.
It's also too, it has that that's absolutely one of the positives, and it's also selfishly just means I get to see more cool Hail Draconis art from different artists that I like.
Right.
So it's a good way to get that happening as well.
It's inspiring, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like putting the covers together for issue 3 was so much fun. It's like literally just me going through my Twitter feed going, who else do I like? Oh yeah, that'd be good. Might reach out, see if I want to do a cover. That's awesome. And again, like the benefits of excellent.
J-Rod says Primordial Rah the 7th is pleased with this interview.
He will not destroy us. That is good. What was I saying? Yeah. So the other good thing about teaming up with you for this drop and getting to use the adult fantasy tech and the minting mechanism and all that sort of stuff meant we could go wild with the covers. Like the first 2 issues, we had 4 covers and 4 tiers of rarity, very straightforward, different mint prices for each cover. But then chatting with you and seeing what you guys did with the cards and the 3D interaction and the grading and all of that sort of stuff, I was like, this is what a comic book should be. So we can just put that into a blind mint, give it what I love about it's got that sort of generative quality. You don't know what condition your cover's going to be in, which is really cool. So you're going to get a unique cover. It might have the same artwork as someone else's cover, but yours is going to be unique because it's graded specifically, and I love all that sort of stuff. It also meant we could just pump more covers out, get like 12 covers.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm so excited to see it, and in fact, I'm gonna pop this on screen. Look at that, we have a banner. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, all you have to do is I wrote click here now, but you can't click because it's a video. So just like.
Can you put the RPTC live price on that ticker?
I wish I could. That'd be awesome. But we go check out, it's haildraconis.cleverera.com. That'll be the mint page. If you go there, you can read all about the project. As designated token human has said, and has been allowed to say by his overlord Crucifor, Hail Draconis and Adult Fantasy are doing a collab. So it's going to be awesome. It's coming this weekend. It starts Friday, it goes to Saturday, and then it goes, really, we'll see what happens. But Friday and Saturday are the big days. If you go to the link, haildraconis.cleverera.com, you can read all about the project. The button that says join allow list is up there, so you can click that. It'll take you over to the pre-mint page. You can sign up. It's going to be pretty cool, man. I'm actually really excited about it. In fact, I should probably we should post this. We should show this. Give me 1 second. So, so there's so many things I want to ask you about, and I have to be careful here. Hold on, let me get this up. Let me see. I'm going to put this here.
I can't reveal too much about what goes on in the Reptilian.
That's right. As I know. There you go. So here's the Hail Draconis page. And if you go to, again, haildraconis.cleverera.com, there's that little blue join the allow list now button, and it's gonna take you right over to the pre-mint page. Carrot says he loves it when someone needs to pronounce some name that's only existed in the mind for a long time. Yeah,
I find that all the time.
Especially with comics. There's so many. Everyone has like these crazy names, and you have as a kid, at least, especially as a teenager or kid, you among friends, the name because you talk about it, and then you say it out loud to someone, they're like, who the hell is that? And it's a completely different, like Bill Sienkiewicz, right? Sienkiewicz.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's a good question. So I know that you I mean, look, people that put out comics, more than one, like have a thing for them, right? So like tell me a bit, like this is something I genuinely don't know. Like tell me, like how did you get into comics? Were you a comic fan, or like what tell me about the past of the comic on the comic side.
Yeah, cool. Oh, absolutely. So started collecting comics when I was a kid. So in primary school, big Marvel guy. So Spider-Man was my first. Then as I got into my teens, I became a bit edgier, and there was the Punisher and the Midnight Suns when Marvel was doing.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
So that was really my jam, because it's like, you know, I was a comic kid and I was a horror movie kid, and so all of that stuff, early 90s, when it was like Ghost Rider and Blade and all those guys, Punisher, that's what I got into. And then got into the Image stuff. That's when Image kicked off as well. So all through my teen years, I was like an avid comic collector, and into my 20s as well. 20s was more fun because you had money to spend.
Yeah,
you weren't just relying on an allowance or something like that. And then it was dangerous though, because then when I was a kid, right, I was living out of the city. I was in a smaller town, and so comics would be a monthly order from one of the city comic shops.
Oh wow, out. You had them delivered,
yeah.
Oh wow,
which was great because you get a package of comics every month. You'd get a little order form and fill out what you want to get, and then moved to the city in my 20s and found my local comic shop. And then I was like, hang on, this coming out every week, this stuff coming out every week, oh shit. And then you start to spend more and more on comics, but you have to, because they just keep coming out. So the collection sort of ballooned then, and then it really eased off. Then it was, you know, life stuff happens, and you get other interests and have a family. And now I've got like my big boxes of comics are out in the shed, ready for my two boys when they get old enough.
Nice.
I've started already though. One of my sons is 5, and every now and then we go out to the shed and I'll pick out some comics for him to.
As long as he's wearing gloves, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, you know,
you're not allowed to touch
little white gloves.
He can't touch them. He can look at them. I will turn the pages with some tweezers for him. No, there's stuff that I'm being very selective on what I hand. But it's you know, there's some fun stuff for him to. He just loves looking at the characters. Like he's right into superheroes as well. But yeah, comics. That's where it started. And but yeah, tell me about yours.
Oh man, I
professionally into comics.
So my first exposure to comics was, so my family used to go to an Italian restaurant once a week. I grew up in Jacksonville in Florida, and inside of the little strip mall where the Italian restaurant was, you would go ahead and order food, and they took freaking forever to, you know, it's probably like 30 minutes, but to a kid it was like forever. And I was just sitting there bored off my ass, and there was a comic shop down the at the end. And so I just asked my mom one night, I was like, hey, do you mind if I go walk down there? She's like, yeah, I don't care, it's fine. So I walked in there, and of course it's a comic shop, and I'm like looking at stuff. It just blew my mind. And that started to get me hooked, because every week I would go and I would get another comic and come back, right? And then that shop moved like across the way, and it just so happened that as I grew up a little bit, my first job, like I started working when I was 12, for like a bagger at like a grocery store, right? And that grocery store happened to be right next door to the comic shop, of course, because I was strategic about it. And my mother didn't like. I was working to help out the family, but it was really more about like, she wanted me to have a job, and just in case, and just kind of learn responsibility and all that kind of stuff. And so it's not like I had anything. I was 12, so I didn't have anything to spend money on. 12, 13 years old. I I didn't have a car. Like there was nothing to do. So I would get my check and I would have them cash it. And then I would go right next door to the comic shop and I would blow the whole thing. Yeah. And because it was like, that's all I cared about. And it was like $1 an issue. So I was like, okay, I know exactly what I can buy. So I would come out to the car when my mom would pick me up with stacks of comics. And it just kept going. It just never stopped. And, by the time I got into high school, I was in an art school, like a magnet high school for the performing arts. Got into that. It was comics that got me into that because I wanted to be a comic artist by that point. And so I was drawing pages and all that kind of stuff and got into that school. And then one thing led to another and just kept going. You know what I mean? College, same thing. Image blew it up. It just never stopped. It really didn't stop it really didn't slow down for me in terms of going to the weekly comic shop until like a couple of years ago. Right. Yeah. Really like right before, it was like maybe a year or two before I started working for Marvel, where I was just like, I finally hit a point where I was like working and I was so busy producing my own stuff that I didn't like unless it was like a legend artist where I was like, that I have to own that. Like, other than that, like a lot of the people that were coming up, I already felt like I could see their style and it wasn't really attractive to me, if you know what I mean. But yeah, and then working at Marvel kind of kicked it back in, and then it's kind of been going ever since. Now I just buy like a lot of original art and artist editions.
Yeah,
have you seen those? Like I'm talking about, like they for those that don't know, the artist editions, they take original art from legendary runs and they scan it in, but they scan the pages in 100% real size, and they don't like tighten it up. Like they don't make the colors better or anything. So so they put these giant books out and it's basically like you own the original art. It's just gorgeous. So I've been collecting that when I can.
What's your latest artist edition purchase?
Oh man. So my latest one, the last one that I got was the here, I'll show you. Okay. This is was the Legends of the Dark Knight, or not, I always say Legends, it's the Dark Knight Returns.
Wow.
Right. So this is the this is what I mean by like an art book. Look at this.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? And so I got this. I got Frank to sign it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got to see him at a convention like right after I got it. It's like 50 pounds. I had to walk around like with this massive book. Like I was so tired. It was the worst thing ever. But I got that son of a bitch to sign my book. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Willie D says that's a huge book. It is massive. These books are huge. So I'm curious, like you're putting all this stuff out. How much of this is planned? Like, I know obviously the animation is planned because that like animation has to be planned, right? So it's like, okay, that has its own pipeline of production, and you're putting out the comics, and I've read them, so I know you're kind of putting together, like you can kind of see ideas being formulated and working through, and like do you guys does Crucifor and your overlords, do they actually have like a room somewhere in the dungeon where like there's like strings tied to like images and like the whole thing is mapped out, or is this sort of like a little on the fly, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. Yeah. A little bit of, it's kind of, we get the tentpole things and then connect the dots on the fly. So we know what's happening with the animation or the direction that's going. And so then it's doing stuff like the profile pic project, doing that in a way that can be independent of the animation, but still tied to that world. So we don't have to rely on the timing of the animation. We can focus on this other thing and get that out there and give that a life of its own, but it's ready to connect with the animation like at a moment's notice. And then the comic book has kind of set that up. So I'll give you, I'll talk through it a little bit. So we did the comic as an origin story. So this is the council before they made it to Earth, established themselves under the pizzeria in Washington, D.C., where they have their little base. That's the animation is the reptilians on Earth. The comic book starts on Alpha Draconis. They get sent off on this mission, and now they're free to tumble through the metaverse and interact with all these other projects, and it's not going to impact what happens to the reptilians on Earth. The profile pic project is the battle for Draconis. So it's set in the current timeline. So Grand Reptilian Council are on Earth, but back in the home world, General Warlord, who is Corplor's dad, he's fallen ill, and reptilians are ruthless. And so when there's a moment of weakness, all of these other parties are going to want to take that opportunity to take over Draconis. So that's happening. The world of the profile pics is happening back on Alpha Draconis, and it's got ties to what's happening on Earth, but we can have that be its own thing until we're ready to incorporate it into the animation world.
That's
so
awesome.
It's kind of like, just to go back, that was a really, I think I circled around what your question was, but yeah, we've got like the key, I guess, story points and the key projects, and then everything else we kind of connect on the fly a little bit, which is what all great conspiracy theories do. And the reptilians are well entrenched in conspiracy theories.
And I think that's awesome. We actually do something similar. We have something every Thursday night called the Lore Games, and the Lore Games is a live stream, and we're setting up the major milestones of a set point in time. Right? This is your whatever the big events are that lead up to Secret Wars or Infinity Gauntlet or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And then once those things are set and the community has input and can kind of decide, not only can those main milestones become things. One, we just completed our first arc or our first story in there, and that's actually going to become a novel, like a prose novel. And then, but then all of the time that happens in between, like it's like animation, right? That's I describe this to other people. I'm like, we're just doing the keyframes, right? Like if you have keyframe here and a keyframe here, or event 1 and event 2, or milestone 1 and milestone 2, like all the stuff that happens in between is completely open. All that matters is you get from point A to point B. All the other stuff that happens inside is free, and character development and story development. And so it's really, I love the fact that you basically said the same thing, because it's something that I preach about in terms of how to structure this thing. Now, my question to you though is when you're doing this, like that storyline that's coming up sounds more serious. So are you keeping it in the realm of like comedy, or is it kind of are you branching out into different areas of?
No. So with everything Hail Draconis, it always has the underlying tone of the reptilians. Like, I'm pretty sure they've tuned out now, so I can speak freely, but they're not that with it. They're not very intelligent. They're pretty much a team of bumbling fools. And so they stumble their way through things, and shit always goes wrong, and things are ridiculous. Like, their world's ridiculous, and that's always got to be at the core of anything Hail Draconis. So the comics definitely lean into that. The profile pic Battle for Draconis, it's going to have that as well. It's like we're looking at that. The artwork, when we get to share some of the artwork, we're working with an artist, Zach, who's done one of our covers. I'm just seeing if it's on the screen right there. Oh yeah, so the second from the right, you can see Crucifor with some swirling light around him.
Oh sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's Zach. He's doing our profile pic project. His style is really detailed and really like intricate, which is very cool and very different from the animated characters. So visually, it's going to be different. But when we're working in the character names and the locations and the traits, that's all going to have the Hail Draconis brand throughout it.
That's really neat. Yeah, that's pretty cool. One of the interesting things with what we're doing on our side, because we open up the actual universe building component to pretty much anyone in the community, is that the characters, at least right now, and it can always change, but like the characters, we have like Subdued and Finger Blaster and like all these just like nutty heinous, like we've got all these crazy characters. Some are more superhero than others, some are wacky, but like the first story that came out of our communal writers room was not only, in my opinion, freaking awesome, it was absolutely dark. Like there was no comedy in it. It's like a Macbethian tragedy, like it's crazy. And so I'm fascinated, like how much, especially because there's such a potential to kind of like change styles as you change projects, right? That I think it's a challenge, right?
It is a challenge, and I think there's merit in both ways. Like there's other projects. I'll just name drop Forgotten Runes as a great example, where that's a prime example of a project building story first, and that's why it's so engaging and has the longevity. And it just popped into my head when you were talking about that, because with their book of lore, which is essentially every wizard or warrior owner can enter their character's story into this on-chain book. And I've got a character that I write an ongoing sort of thing for, and he's very silly and the world's very silly. And then you hear other owners read their stories, and the wizard world's so, it's dark and it's really serious and really detailed. And it's like, projects have the scope to be anything that the community wants it to be. And so the challenge, I guess that's great. Like, I love that. With our project, again, going back to that idea of, we sort of have been building it slowly and over a long period of time. I don't know if there's that scope built into it yet. Maybe that'll come in the generative project, but I look at it where the core characters and the core tone of Hail Draconis is what the project is. And so I kind of feel that has to be across everything. But it's an interesting point, and I guess it hasn't arisen where we've been put in the position where we've seen this alternate interpretation of the world. Does that answer?
It does. Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to like creator voice, right? And it's how much you want to guide it for whatever period of time you choose to guide it. Like you said, there's no right or wrong. And it's interesting. Like to your point, other projects do. Like I think it'll be interesting, like especially as you roll out this PFP side, to see how that changes the dynamic, right? Because then you have people who are actively like fully into the universe, right? And so that with that comes new opportunity and new like new things that you can create to bring people, like actually give them a voice into that,
Yeah, and I think that's the intention of setting it on Alpha Draconis. In my mind, the community can build what Alpha Draconis is. Like they can build how that civilization works. And we're keeping the animation world in a bit of a bubble. So whatever happens with the development of the animation isn't directly impacted by, if we release this project and it just somehow comes into reality that, Alpha Draconis is full of, I don't know, whatever like the community comes up with. I was going to say something custom, but like it could be anything. Giant dildo shaped throne rooms or whatever. That's what the community decides. And Alpha Draconis can be that, because we don't the show's not set back on the home planet. The home planet can be as wild and full of disparate ideas and be anything. And I think that's the perfect ground for that to happen.
Right.
So I think it's kind of having the best of both worlds, maybe, is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for this playground for holders to shape that doesn't really change what we're doing with the main property.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's a really interesting thing, and I cannot wait. I mean, I've been following you guys for a long time, and I can't wait to see like what's coming next, even after the Hail Draconis Adult Fantasy collab, which everybody see what I did there. You see how that works? I'm just so pro. It's so pro, isn't it?
I love
it. Which everybody just go to haildraconis.cleverera.com. Check out the page. If you're not on the allow list, hit the blue button. It'll take you to the pre-mint page. Or you could just hop into either of our discords, and you'll be guided there. I am sure of it. Well, Mr. Designated Token Human, a couple things before we head out. The first is where? Well, the first is this. I just want to let you know that we've been talking for a while here. And I want to make sure, like, this is a secure channel, right? Like,
it is.
Christopher and those guys are listening, right?
Yeah.
I just want to let you know, I know they kind of let you into this room to have a conversation with me, but behind you is Marvel Comics #1. And I'm pretty sure that if you sell that on like eBay or like one of the auction sites, you might just be able to get out of the dungeon. You might just be able to get out.
If that was actually a real comic, I would be all over that.
Damn it. I tried. Willie D says collab, you say? Yes, Willie D, we have a collab. We've got a drop coming Friday. In fact, I'll say this before we get all the station identification stuff. Friday, it's going to be on that min page at haildraconis.cleverera.com. Friday is Hail Draconis, Sigil of the Probinator, and adult fantasy holders. You can jump on there on Friday, and each group gets special stuff, right? So you definitely want to go on Friday and jump in. Saturday is when the allow list opens up. So if you're not a holder of Hail Draconis, if you're not a holder of Adult Fantasy, I will say that you can just go over to OpenSea or Looks Rare and pick something up. However, if you choose not to, if you want to wait, if you want to wait till Saturday, you can totally wait till Saturday. So allow list is Saturday. Friday are for holders. So Friday is the holder day. Saturday is for allow list. It's going to be awesome. It's so hard because I get to see stuff behind the scenes. And the covers look amazing. The comic is amazing, and the grading on these things are going to be so sick, dude. I'm so ready for it.
It's gonna be great.
Absolutely. So, where else should we send people? Designated.
You can come to Crucifor's Twitter feed at Crucifor. Go to the Hail Draconis Twitter at Hail Draconis, and on both of those channels, you'll find a link to our Discord, which is the Reptilian, where I am generally housed. It's a great place to visit. Me living there, not so great, but come and pop in and you can chat directly to the Reptilians. You can ask them anything you like. They're pretty approachable.
That's awesome. Carrot says he's going to grab his Friday. Awesome. Yeah. It's going to be good. Willie D says I love special stuff. Yeah,
it's very special.
These are going to be really good. I'm very excited about this. So, anyway, with that said, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Designated Token Human, thank you so much for coming, and please tell Crucifor a good thank you for me as well for allowing you out.
I will pass that on. Thanks for having me, and thanks for listening to my rambling.
No, it was awesome, man. It was a fantastic conversation. Everybody, thank you again. See you next time on the next Evening Alpha. Pop over to our Discords and go check out haildraconis.cleverera.com Friday is Saturday. It's a big day. You're not going to want to miss it. Until then, everybody, thank you guys so much.